right, well, welcome back, everybody, to part two of this series with Breandán Goss. Unfortunately, we had a technical disconnection, so it cut in the middle of Breandán's last answer, but he was telling us about the EIT Kick. EIT, the Climate KIC Accelerator, specifically how that runs and how we've operated that within Tangent. Now, what I want to ask now, and kind of what we might get into is, given the kind of current environment and the COVID-19 outbreak, there's been a lot of adaptation that has happened, and this series is kind of going into the detail of how we have adapted and overcome those challenges. So, Breandán, I'd like to get your take, and kind of maybe you could explain to us a bit about how the COVID-19 situation impacted the Climate KIC Accelerator and how you have gone about overcoming that and delivering the program despite the challenges.
Joe, we've had to do things remotely, and we've had to prevail upon everybody else to join us on that kind of remote journey. So we've I think actually very smoothly and relatively seamlessly been able to transition to a remote level of engagement with the startups, whereas obviously activities like this are much more intimate and personable when they're done face to face in groups, and when you're working with startups and teams and you're engaging in, either a classroom type of scenario or basic physical interaction with people. We've just had to transfer everything to the remote world, and people have chimed along with that. And I think in terms of imparting knowledge, there has been no, if you like, change or necessary, less. There's been no kind of deleterious effect, I should say. The quality of information, the quality of engagement, the quality of enthusiasm, the kind of pitch and everything has been as it would be expected if we were all in the same room together. In actual fact, possibly more so, because everybody's pretty much now a captive audience, you could argue. So there's no escape, and I think it has created a degree of solidarity as well amongst teams, because if you're fortunate enough to become a part of a chosen few in a program like this, it's a competitive process when teams come in. Everybody's in the same boat, and everybody rolls along with it, basically. So I think all parties so far have been pretty happy with how things have gone. So many things outside of our control, frankly, that certainly nobody has picked any holes or found any kind of serious deficiencies in what we've done. But equally, we're all here to help each other, and any queries that come up, any uncertainties that arise, we deal with them personally, online, or by the phone, or whatever it might be. So, it's just a different way of imparting information.
Absolutely. So a lot of the kind of like the same program, the same delivery, it's just now in a virtual world. What have been the technologies that have enabled you to be able to continue to deliver the program? Because I know everybody's kind of using a bunch of different things, but this is something that might be useful for some of our viewers who might be working on delivering their own sorts of things. What are the technologies that have enabled you to be able to continue to run the program?
Well, primarily we're using Zoom. Just because we're possibly more familiar with the intricacies of it, and it seems to be fairly intuitive in terms of adopting new users. But we would use Teams as well. Teams is equally intuitive. So from the point of view of technology, it's not that difficult. Offline, then we would probably use Doodle to just organize and schedule things, Doodle polls amongst participants and the people who run the workshops and deliver or impart the information. So it's not terribly complicated. Zoom has proven to be pretty resilient so far with the groups we've worked with. A number of workshops have gone for 3, 4, 5 hour stretches with breaks, obviously, but nonetheless, technically it's proved to be pretty robust. And just like ourselves with our live stream, if something drops out, we just kind of pick it back up again.
Absolutely.
There's a tolerance for that as well, because people understand.
100%. We're all just rolling with the punches a little bit with
Yeah,
whatever happens with the technology. And with Zoom, the one thing that you get out of kind of an accelerator is the ability to kind of like, when you're in a physical space, you can kind of break out and go and be with your team. Have you had a chance to use the kind of breakout rooms function within Zoom? Because I know that's in Zoom, I know that's in Teams, it's in Blackboard, it's in most of the things. But what has been the experience thus far with that function? Have the teams been able to kind of coalesce in their own groups that way?
we don't have shares in Zoom now, Joe. Anything to disclose?
No, no, no. See, now we don't get shares of anything on this. We're
Okay.
just kind of trying to help the people out there.
No, it's been fine. Yeah, the breakout room, the breakout spaces are managed, if you like, by a moderator who effectively blindly drops you into rooms that might or might not have identifications on them. So, so that makes it slightly exciting.
Absolutely.
That's, I'm afraid, but it's good. I mean, if you're involved in mentoring, for example, um, and doing a quick kind of a speed date mentorship period with companies, the breakout rooms are useful because you've got the confidentiality and the discretion and the privacy, I should say, to talk face to face with people. And actually, it's it's good. It's very effective and it's a very efficient way of just providing more personalized attention to people rather than everything being sustained on a kind of a group focus, if you like.
Right.
So it's nice to emphasize the fact that you can actually have direct one-to-one engagement, and it's a good environment then for people to be honest if they've got issues or difficulties that they want to get off their chest. Not that that's been the case, but nonetheless, the technology is there for you to be able to do it and to be able to mitigate any issues that might arise.
So you can still maintain a bit of that kind of like the personality of the people who are there. You're able to have conversations that kind of matter and help these teams to develop their ideas in a way where they don't have to disclose everything necessarily in as public an environment, which is kind of what they might look for.
Yeah, and I think more an important aspect of it is that when these group classes are being run, that they're being moderated in a very controlled way, in such that people's expectations are managed. So nobody's put on the spot. There are no surprises, and that kind of that careful moderation of content and the delivery of information is an important way of managing this kind of process. So if you've got 10, 15, 25 people online, they need to know that somebody is kind of pulling the strings, or somebody knows what they're doing, at least, because very quickly people can lose interest or be distracted by other stuff. So once you set expectations and manage those expectations with these remote platforms, and then people get used to that, then as I say, thus far for us it's been pretty seamless.
That's good to hear. And so what has been, if any, the kind of feedback? I know you're in kind of phase 1 moving into phase 2. What has been the kind of feedback from the participants thus far?
The feedback, as you would expect me to say, has been uniformly positive. I know it has been positive. I mean, it's never easy at the end of stage 1, which was last week, having to say goodbye to teams and having to inform them as to why decisions were made that affected them. So the rationale needs to be there and backed up. Everybody is evaluated at the end of each phase, and the evaluation is done independently by people who have domain expertise. So it's all quite transparent. But at the same time, breaking bad news to people isn't always the most pleasurable experience. But I think, even with that, the decisions were taken on the chin. I mean, expectations, as I mentioned, were set at the outset, which is critical. So nobody goes into these programs blind. And stage 2 is kicked off, and the expectation would be that in 2 months' time, the same process will take place, and that everybody's who's involved now knows that. But listen, people have been very sincere and gracious in their responses so far. But equally, if there's criticism, we'll take that criticism on board, but whatever fashion it comes in. So Absolutely. We won't show any responsibilities in that regard. And our feet are held to the coals by EIT. So there's a very rigorous forensic reporting exercise at the end of these programs. So it's not a question of us putting out a call to action for startups to get involved. Every step of the process is monitored and reported on and interrogated quite forensically at the end of the period by the European Union, effectively, who are giving us this money. So we need to be very, very transparent in terms of what it is we do, and rigorous about how we apply those levels of transparency. So, there's nothing, there's nothing kind of on the fly or ad hoc about what we do here. It's all, planted in a very kind of realistic, transparent kind of a forum. So companies who are benefiting for the right reasons, and those who don't quite make the cut, unfortunately, are given a justifiable rationale for not having done so.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that kind of like that structure of it leads to a really like a quality program that is able to help these students on, because obviously if a team is able to participate in just phase one, they're still going to get something out of that despite whether or not they can go to phase two, phase three. In terms of the phases now, so I know the teams are now moving on to kind of phase two, and you touched on it briefly earlier that there are kind of three phases. What is the distinction between kind of a phase one team, a phase two team, and a phase three team in terms of both where they would be in their level of development and what they might get out of the program?
Well, listen, from the outset, there's always going to be diversity and different levels of maturity of company or of startup, because we're taking teams with diverse solutions anyway from different sectors, right? So there might be innovations in recycling, in robotics, there might be innovation in fashion design, there might be innovation in food waste, so we're looking at, sustainability in its broadest application both to the environment, but also to the economy. But also we need to ensure that the companies who are put through the system, or to whom we give the kind of significant levels of funding at the end of the program. So effectively those who make it through the third stage into the final stage, they'll get significant grant funding. But we do that on the basis that we think they've got real commercial potential, and they're not that far away from either, monetizing their product or solution, or at least taking on further investment. So that's really the key differentiator. But equally, we're quite open that stage one is an opportunity to bring in companies that are potentially more embryonic, who would benefit from that kind of early stage, initial touch, interaction with domain experts, who even within that fairly short period or interval of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, will be able to learn quite a lot, which potentially can help them in their next stages of development. So the stage gate approach enables us, or allows us to do that, to incorporate the flexibility to be able to deal with very embryonic ideas, but equally to help develop further those who are probably a little bit more mature commercially or personally, at a corporate level, whatever it might be.
Well, it's awesome to hear that like the teams are able to get something out of it regardless of kind of what phase of development they're at, and that there's kind of, you're going to meet them where they are and in a structured, calculated, kind of organized way. So it's an exciting program. I know a bit about it. I'm sure all of our viewers now know quite a bit about it, be it running in the physical world or running in the digital world. If there are people here who are interested in the Climate KIC program, be it from the perspective of getting involved at the high level of like engaging and contributing in some way, or in the way of kind of like applying as a startup, where would they want to go to find that information?
They'll find details of the programs on our website.
Okay.
There's actually there should be a list of the teams that have participated thus far in stage one of this year's program, probably reference to teams who participated last year also, and we'll update that list. But it'll give people who are interested an idea of the scope and diversity of solution and startup that we've worked with. And it should encourage people, if they have a genuine entrepreneurial bent, or if it's something that they want to pursue as a business or as a career, it's an opportunity for them to perhaps examine how this might be of use to them. And we're all about keeping a very close eye on grassroots activity, because that's where the most disruptive solutions come from. Not always, but you know, particularly in a world with immediate systemic needs like climate change, you know, people might have a brilliant idea that nobody's ever thought of before, and programs like ours potentially can help put a bit of shape and form on those ideas, and maybe, who knows, lead to some dramatic change that can benefit all.
That's amazing. Well, I think that's as good a place as any for us to leave it for today. Breandán, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about how this program has gone from the physical world into the digital world and will continue on for hopefully years to come. That's the plan, and develop some great startups. The links that Breandán mentioned, I'm going to put in the description of this video. So if you guys want to check out more about Climate KIC, the teams that are on it, or anything more, they can go there. I'll also have the link to Breandán's LinkedIn. So if you want to go say hello and check him out, do go there. But thanks again, Breandán, for coming on. And everybody watching, we'll hope to see you in the next episode.
Margaret Shaw. Long live.